All right, so let's take a look at this first unit here. It's the one that has the 3 switches. Okay, let's get a little bit of a closer look here. So right off the bat, there's a wire that was coming out of the RF module here. Leads to nowhere. And it looks like it's going to the RCA jack, the video out. So I'm thinking they probably had something in here to utilize the video out. It looks like the video out wire going to the board is disconnected. So they disconnected the video out to the board, and they put this wire on there connecting to nowhere. So obviously they had something there at some point. The other obvious thing that sticks out is this has a fan that they put in here. And the interesting thing is the fan's not connected to anything. But I see these leads here. Looks like they were just cut from these, and then these were wrapped in electrical tapes. We'll put a multimeter to this to verify that. It looks like it's a 12-volt fan, so it's probably a 12-volt coming out of here. Now, as far as the 3 switches, you can't see them because of the case, but there's the one switch here to the left. That was that black switch. And yeah, that's why it doesn't do anything, because it's not connected to anything. So there's that. The second switch here has a cable that's routing. It's a red cable. It's routed to the ground plug here. You can't see it. It's behind the front face of the case. So it looks like there's that ground plug. I don't know why they used a red wire for that, but there's a ground plug that's going to that switch, and it's also then that switch is also jumpering that ground plug to the first switch here. So it's obviously that these 2 switches are connected to ground, and so they're going to be grounding out what? So this first switch here looks like there's a green wire, and it's going underneath the drive. It's coming back out the drive this way, and it's going to the reset switch. Okay, so this switch right here, the red switch, is grounding out the reset. So that's the reset. That's the system reset. That second switch here is the drive reset. So that'll reset the drive. Okay, so we got that. And then the switches underneath that you don't see, those toggle switches. Okay, you can see the switches here. They're not connected. System reset, drive reset, and these toggle switches go to the pad. Looking underneath here. And underneath you can't see it because the drive is in the way here, but it's going there underneath the drive to the pads that select the drive number. All right, so we got the drive select switches, got the drive reset switches, got the system reset switch, and we got a switch that does nothing. I'm going to replace all of these wires for sure. They're very hard. They don't have a lot of flexibility to them, so I'm going to replace them all with some silicone wiring, make things a little bit nicer. I think what I'm going to do is this guy here that's not used, I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and utilize that switch, and I'm going to put JiffyDOS in here. So we'll make that switch to turn JiffyDOS on and off. So I think that's going to be the plan to use that extra switch for. The system reset switch, I can see out of convenience why they moved it to the front. So we'll just rewire that, but we'll leave that in place. The drive reset we'll also leave in place. So that's fine. Outside of that, I might have a switch. Since this already has 3 switches and this is all the front has already been drilled out and everything, I might just put one more switch and enable this fan and put that switch to turn the fan on and off, because I'm sure the fan will probably make a little bit of noise, so it'll be nice to be able to turn it off, and if it starts getting warm, it'll be nice to keep it on. So I don't know, we'll see. Let me turn this thing on and see how the fan goes. I just noticed the SID chip here has a little label on it. It says SID 128 with a C instead of an S. So that's kind of interesting. It is a 6581. So, all right. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this faceplate off here. First thing we need to do is take out the drive latch here, and that should just pull out. Okay, there's the drive latch right there. And then there's screws, 3 screws on the top here. Okay, and then this just basically just lifts up a little bit, and then the little tabs on the bottom will come right out. All right, here's a lot of the wiring. Okay, let's move this back. So some of the wiring is a little short, so I can't really pull this out too much. Okay, so here we have a better glimpse of what's going on here. So they have some wires here that just aren't connected to anything. That's that last switch. And it looks like they were using it for something on at least 2 of the wires. But we'll just go ahead and take this out. We're going to take all of these switches out. I think I'm going to replace the switches. I'm going to get some momentary switches that have little LED lights on them and stuff. So let me replace the switches as well. And I'll replace all the wiring also. So yeah, so I think that's what we're going to do. Let's get rid of these switches and start over basically. This switch here doesn't even have a nut on it. This is the power LED, so that'll stay, but let's go ahead and take this out for now. Looks like this switch is kind of glued on, and this has a nut holding it on, so okay. So we'll take this switch off as well. That makes it easy, doesn't it? The drive LED here, there should be a plug, but it's not. It's kind of hardwired in there. So I'm going to make this, I'm going to put a plug here for the LED, I think. Right. Okay, this is the reset. But this is going to ground or something. Okay, no, that's the drive reset. Okay. This is a system reset. Something like that. Okay, doesn't really matter. I'm going to be replacing these switches anyways. We'll figure it out later. All right. So they really didn't do some clean holes in here. It looks like they kind of even melted some of the plastic around it. So let me get some new switches in here. Let's see how much of that it covers up. Maybe we'll get a reamer and just kind of deburr that a bit. And so I have some latching and some push button monetary switches here that have LEDs in them. So these are the switches I'm going to replace those old ones with. Hopefully they'll fit in these holes. Well, yeah, it just slides right in. But because of the finish on the holes, it doesn't look all that great. This one's probably the worst one right here. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to deburr these holes, get some of this junky plastic melted piece off, and I will find some very thin washers to put behind this. So that'll help cover up some of the gaps in the holes. Yeah, especially this guy here. This is the worst one. So let's see what we can do to clean that up a little bit. So let me show you what I've done here. I rewired everything. I didn't want to bore you with me unsoldering and soldering wires, but I rewired the reset switches, rewired the drive select switches. I connected the fan. Turns out the fan is a 5-volt fan, and the two black and white wires that were coming out from underneath the power supply really weren't drawing the 5 volts. Well, first of all, they weren't connected, they were cut, but the other is that they weren't drawing the 5 volts from the right place in the power supply. So I'm drawing 5 volts from the power supply output here. I connected a plug here for the fan. That way if the fan ever goes bad, I can easily unplug it without having to unsolder things. So all of these wires coming in, the reset wires, the drive select wires and everything, all have quick disconnects. So that way I can disconnect the switches very easily and pull out the front panel without unsoldering any wires. What else have we got? I installed JiffyDOS. I'm not going to go through the details of how to build the JiffyDOS ROMs because I'm going to leave in the description, in the links in the description to the Retro channel, who did an exceptional job of explaining and showing you how to build your JiffyDOS ROMs. Remember, you need to license JiffyDOS or get a JiffyDOS license. So make sure you do that properly and not pirate the thing. But the Retro channel has a great video on how to build your JiffyDOS ROMs. There are nuances to it. RavenWolf also has a video. That dude has such a sense of humor. But I'll also leave links to his video and his escapade in building the JiffyDOS ROM. He uses, I believe, the Promenade on the 64 to do the ROMs, which is, old school. But anyways, I'll leave those links in there. But there's the pin right there that gets grounded for you to select the JiffyDOS kernel or the native kernel, and that goes to one of the switches. And then you have here the drive part of JiffyDOS, the drive ROM. So anyways, check the description for those and the links. Here are all the wires coming in for the switches. Okay, so I have quick disconnects. Notice I don't know if you noticed, but I added another hole here for a third switch here. This had this hole already, which was for the drive reset, and then here are 3 more holes. So the problem I had with these holes, the original holes, is that look, they're burnt in and they got a lot of, they were bigger than they should have been as well. So I'm going to give you a bit of a tip here. If you're putting holes, which I don't normally like to put holes in the cases, I like to hide the switches like in the back, but in this case they were already there. But if you're going to put holes in your cases, in plastic especially, use a step drill. These are great. You don't need a bunch of different bits. You just basically drill little by little until it gets to the size that you need, and you'll find that the hole is a very nice, smooth hole. No shards. You don't really need to deburr it unless you really want to get that sophisticated, but this is the right tool for drilling your holes for your switches. So let me explain what I did with the switches, because I also took the switches out. So as far as the switches are concerned, I'm putting in these push button switches. Okay, and you can see the connector, on the back. That's what's going to go here, and that way I can disconnect the switches anytime I want to take the front panel off. But these all have LEDs in them. So that's why I'm pulling 5 volts into the switch from the back here. So each switch has 3 wires going to it. The red is 5 volts, the black is ground, and the yellow is the wire that's getting triggered by the ground. So for example, if I want to reset the computer, that reset wire has to be touched against ground, and that'll reset the computer. JiffyDOS, when I want the kernel to switch between JiffyDOS and the native kernel, I'm going to have to either push that little pin right here to ground or disconnect it from ground. So that's where the black wire comes in. So because these switches have LEDs in them, which I thought was pretty cool, I'm pulling 12 volts, that's the red wire, and that goes to the plus side of the switch. The switches are marked underneath. And then the black wire here does not go to minus. I'll explain why. That goes to this terminal here. When you press the switch, this terminal shorts with this terminal here. If you don't press the switch, then it keeps those two open. So what happens is when you press the switch, this shorts this ground to this terminal here, which is the trigger wire for either the reset or the JiffyDOS ROM or whatever else you have going on, drive reset. And this is jumpered to the minus. So what ends up happening is there's a constant 5 volts going to it, but the LED isn't lit because these two pins aren't shorted. And as soon as you press the button and these two pins are shorted, now ground gets delivered to the trigger wire as well as the negative terminal for the LED to light up. Okay, so I hope that made some sense. But if you look at this, that's how you wire up these switches if you want to have a little bit of light on your switches. Okay, so the other thing that I did is because some of these holes were oversized, I would have needed to put a washer behind this switch. But rather than do that, what I did instead is I 3D printed a template that I'll put in front. So you can see this template switch here. It will turn the fan on and off. So that's a momentary switch that I'm going to have there. And then the reset switch. I'm sorry, that's a latch switch, so it'll either stay on or stay off. A momentary switch is this reset that'll reset the computer. That goes to the computer reset line. And then the JiffyDOS is a latch switch also, so that'll turn that pin right here in JiffyDOS to ground or disconnect from ground depending on whether the switch is on or off. Okay, so that'll control whether you're using JiffyDOS or the regular kernel. There was also another wire here, or another switch here, I should say, that was for the drive reset. Again, the hole was just oversized for the switches, so I made a little bit of a washer that we'll put in front for that switch as well. Okay, so I think I think that, and I also rewired the switches for the drive select. So I think that covers everything. A few other little nitpicky things. And this whole power supply was loose because it was missing the M3. It's M3 screws that screw onto the side in case you're ever missing screws. So I had some spare M3 screws, so I tightened up the power supply. And obviously I disconnected the drive to make things easier for me. So enough rambling. Let's get this thing put together and then do a quick test of the switches and hope everything works. All right, stay tuned. All right, so I got the switches installed, got the face plates on, everything looks good, so let's turn the computer on. And all right, so this switch here should turn blue. It's a latch switch, which means it'll stay in place, and it does, and that means JiffyDOS is on or off. I'm not sure which one. We'll figure it out after we plug the monitor in and shut that off. Reset, this will turn red. It's a momentary switch, so this will reset the computer, and it does turn red. And then the last is the fan, which the fan right now is off. Okay, so we turn this switch on here. Okay, and there you go. The fan is on. Okay. And then we've got one more switch here, which is this guy here, and that's the drive reset, and that should turn red when I push it. And it does, and you can see the drive light. So that's the drive reset. Okay, so that works really good. And the cool is this a system reset. This should also turn red on the system reset, because when you reset the system, it also resets the drive. So let's see if that happens. Here's the reset system here. This should both turn red. And they do. Okay, so we got all the switches in place now, and let's go ahead and put a monitor. We'll put this thing back together, put the drive back on, and put a monitor on here, and let's see if everything works like it should. All right, so stay tuned, hold on, be right back. All right, so hopefully this will be the summary part of the video if everything works. So this is the monitor we repaired in the last video that came with this bundle. So we got that turned on. Let's turn on the 128 here. And there we go. Awesome. All right, so notice that it boots up into JiffyDOS. I have 3 buttons here that we talked about before. This one controls the fan. This one controls the reset of the computer. This one controls JiffyDOS. And this one controls the drive reset. Now, booting into JiffyDOS, I opted to do that with this light off because I didn't want the light bothering me. But if I wanted to show JiffyDOS with this light on the button, I would have had to reverse the kernel and the JiffyDOS ROM, because grounding that little pin on that ROM that I showed you earlier is what turns it on. So anyways, not grounding that pin is what turns it on. So anyways, bottom line is, if we go ahead and reset the computer and hit the JiffyDOS switch here while it's resetting, there we go. So no more JiffyDOS. So you can see it's going back and forth between JiffyDOS and the kernel. And because it's not on JiffyDOS, the light is on. Again, you can make it so the light is off when it's not on JiffyDOS and the light is on when it's on JiffyDOS. It all depends on, you'd have to just reverse the order of the kernels in the JiffyDOS ROM when you build it. So we got a fan, and it's a very low noise fan, so you don't really hear it, but the fan is going, I can hear it here. I already showed you the reset works, so I'm going to shut the fan off. But if I hit the reset switch here, you can see the screen resets. Okay, and then we have the drive reset here. Okay, and the drive is resetting. Make sure the drive works. Okay, so our switch settings here on the bottom, I have the switch set to something other than 8. So the switch settings are all the way in, so I think that might be 11. Let's find out. Yeah, it is 11. So there we go. So it's loaded. Okay, so everything seems to work pretty well. We're in 80 column mode. Let's try, in 40 column mode. Let's try 80 column mode here really quick. So to do that, we're going to basically change the output of the monitor here. And there we go, 80 column. Let's make sure 80 column works with JiffyDOS. And there we go, JiffyDOS. All right, so 2 out of the 3 systems here, out of the bundle of 3 that we got, are a go. We repaired the monitor, put the flyback transformer in there. We repaired and added the switch. The switches that were in there, the holes were a little big, so we had to put these little, I could have made these any color since I 3D printed these little washer type things, or the templates. But other than that, everything works. Normally, like I said before, I put the switches hidden, like in the back or something like that. But I think overall, it's decent, looks good, it works. I'm happy. So I hope you got a little something out of this. This wasn't that big a deal of a video, but the third and final 128D, which we'll get to in the next video here, the drive isn't working. So that's what I've been told. So we're gonna, boot that thing up and see if we can figure out why the drive's not working and repair that. And that'll be that for this bundle. All right. So like I always say, Live for today. Life is short. Enjoy it. Peace out.